Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion.
On this episode of the show, we sit down with SoCalExploring and TheHauntLine to talk highlights of the 2021 haunt season. You're listening to episode 121 of the Theme Park Duo podcast.
Prepare yourselves for an unforgettable encounter.
Hi, and welcome to the Theme Park Duo podcast. Grab your park map, churro, and hop in line with us as we take you on a coast-to-coast adventure through the world of theme parks, haunts, conventions, and more. Now, here's your hosts, Nikki and Gabriel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Theme Park Duo podcast. I'm your host, Gabe, today, and Nikki is kind of missing, as you would notice because she didn't say her little bits and bobs that she normally does. And before when this happened, I had a older, whiter, balder version of Nikki in the form of Greg Condon from Park Journey, and that was pretty fantastic when I had him on to talk about Fright Fest at Six Flags Magic Mountain. But this time around, I am joined by two wonderful gentlemen that I have come to know in this community and talking about haunts and themed entertainment as a whole, and they are pretty amazing. So I'm glad that we finally are able to get them here on the show with us to talk about our haunt roundup. And if you're wondering why Nikki's missing, it's because Nikki really only did like one haunt, and she would basically have like one thing to say. So she's like, go get some of your friends to put on the show. It makes for a better show. I was like, okay, sure. So now you have to look forward to this, but also look forward to Nikki's official return on the next episode. But let's waste no more time, and let's introduce our guests to the show today. First off, we're going to be welcoming Scott from SoCalExploring to the show. Welcome, sir.
What's going on, Gabe? Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Dude, yes, no, it's about time. It's been too long. I'm happy that the stars are finally aligning and that we're actually doing something together.
You guys don't know, we took a long time to set this up. We're just busy people, you know?
Yes, we're all three different people. I have a kid. Everyone has jobs. It's hard to line things up. So I'm glad that it finally worked. But of course, it wouldn't be the full show if we didn't have John from the HauntLine joining us as well. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. You know, Gabe, you said Nikki was missing, and then you kind of like were real chill about it, and I was like, is there something I should know? Maybe I shouldn't ask.
I murdered her. She did.
I'm glad everything's all right.
Yeah, it's definitely in the spirit of the Halloween episode, for sure. Definitely. No, she's downstairs watching Teen Mom or something. I don't know.
Nice. Right.
That's her jam.
Good alibi, Gabe.
Trashy jam. Teen Mom.
Well, thanks for having me on, brother. I'm excited to talk about the haunt season because it was a very interesting one indeed.
Yeah, no, I'm once again very happy to have both of you guys on. You know, we always talk, you know, on social media. Scott, I see you way more than I see John, but you know, I'm happy that we're sitting down. We're going to have this conversation because all three of us very much have the same affinity for the haunt season and themed entertainment in general. So I know that all three of us are going to have very interesting points of view in terms of this season's haunt season, as it were, because we missed 2020. There was no haunt season in 2020. There were some minuscule, small little events here and there, some drive-through haunts and haunted car wash, but that isn't in replacement for an entire haunt season. So coming into 2021, knowing that we were going to have our haunt season back, like almost like in full force, really, it was a little overwhelming. And I don't know about you guys, but for me coming back into it, it was almost like I hadn't ridden that bike in a while, so I was a little nervous about just being able to cover everything and just kind of getting back into it. But like before I knew it, it was like riding a bike, and it was just, you were full-fledged back into it.
Yeah, I know for me, I mean, hell, it came on, and then it came on fast, man. Like the haunt season started and it didn't stop. Like it was just
you're not wrong. It was just, it wasn't like even a lead in. It was just boom, it's here, go.
Yeah, it almost like
100%.
kind of somehow caught me by surprise, even though I was fully aware that it was happening. And then also on that, like before you knew it, it was over. Like it was just like a blink of an eye. I had so much content planned that I didn't get around to. At the end of the day, I just kind of decided, you know what? Shit's moving really fast. Sorry, can I cuss on this?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, cool.
I really only bleep the F words.
Okay, cool. Stuff's moving really fast. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just enjoy this haunt season. especially because 2020, I mean, we didn't get it at all, or we got like a version of it, which was a lot of fun, but nothing beats the real.
I think a lot of it, what made it come so fast is the fact that, yes, we all knew it was coming, obviously, and everyone's like, oh, what's the future going to be? Will there be plexiglass? Will there be this? Will there be that? And obviously, the haunts themselves didn't even know what was going to come until they announced it like the month before. So when they announced it the month before, everyone's like, oh, so excited. And little do you know, 3 weeks later, the event's here.
No, you're really not wrong in that. Where the places running the events, so like the Not Scary Farms, the Fright Fest, the Horror Nights, all of them are really planning these events at the edge of their seat because of mandates coming down from the state or whatever, whatever part of California they're living in. Things are definitely going to change and adjust, and they're going to have to work on it on the fly. So you're 100% right in that. Like that definitely contributed to a lot of the almost unpredictability and quickness of the season kind of just arriving. And John, you're totally right. I felt like it happened so quick and it ended so quickly. And we had a lot of episodes that we put out. Like, we're bi-weekly episodes here, but we started putting episodes out every week just because there was another event that we had to cover, another event we had to talk about, different roundups and things like that. But there were a lot of times where I just said to Nikki, I was like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to go. And I just want to soak it in and not think about anything because we didn't have it in 2020. I want to sit in Ghost Town and just watch. I want to go to Fright Fest and watch the slider show, things like that. Right. And I think this year more than any other year, I appreciated those things so much more.
I think that's one thing that like I really realized this year too is the fact that like, without it being around for 2020, obviously we had the drive-through haunts and we had Orlando and whatnot, but it wasn't the same. Having it in 2021 is like, damn, like I miss this and I know it's going to go by fast. You had that sense that it was going to feel like it goes by fast. Every haunt season goes by fast, but this year especially. And I mean, I filmed like maybe 4 haunt videos like this year, and was I even happy with the quality? Not really, because I was just having fun, That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to soak it in, like you said. I wanted to do those things. I wanted to go without having to not worry about filming a maze. And I think that's what kind of made it special. No doubt about it. 2022 will be a lot different because they'll obviously have a lot more new things, quote unquote. As we know, there have been some returning things this year with different haunt events, and it was nice to get settled into it. But this year, I feel like it was just more just to enjoy what we had because we actually had something.
And let's not beat around the bush either. With 2020, we had a haunted car wash, which was pretty dang good. But then we had Urban Legends of Orange County or whatever that just was absolutely horrendous. It was so bad. And just like, it was almost like salt in the wound at that point where it's like, okay, we don't have a haunt season, but I have this trash. Like, I guess at least I watched.
It was like, all right, let's deal with it. Let's just go in, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it was. It was very disappointing, but I think that's what made 2021 taste even sweeter at that point.
And it's so funny too, because I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but I found myself doing everything I wanted to. Like, I checked everything off my list in terms of going to these events, and yet at the end, it went by so fast that I still somehow felt like, wait, what did I miss? Like,
no, you're dude. No, this is the reason why I have you guys on, because that's the exact same thing that I did. I felt like I did everything I wanted to do, even though at the end of it, I still felt like it wasn't enough.
That's
exactly
weird. Especially walking through as many mazes as you can, like as many times as you can, it still feels like, wow, did I walk through that maze enough? Even though you may have walked through it like double digits time. It's just weird.
I mean, I walked through Bride of Frankenstein Lives at HHN, I think at least 8 times, and I still don't feel like that was enough.
Yep.
I did that. Mesmer, I can't count on both hands how many times I went through that maze. It's or walk through Ghost Town. How many times did I do that? Or the shows that I wanted to see, things like that. So, I think it was just the appetite that we had for the events and haunts in general that we had that made us feel like we weren't getting enough of it, even though we were completely oversaturated with literally everything. But I think that's inevitable when it comes to a year like this, where we had it taken away.
Yeah, totally. That definitely messes with your mind a little bit, just because again, you're coming out of a season where there wasn't a lot, and then this season, I mean, we had new things, right? Like Hallow Scream, San Diego popped out of nowhere. We had other things that didn't come around, like Horror Made Here. I was hoping they would make a comeback, but we didn't get it this
Dude,
year.
that thing's never coming back, I guarantee.
Yeah, I know. We'll see. We'll see if there's an actual comeback.
Back.
On that subject, Queen Mary Dark Harbor, right? It was weird not having them around.
I found myself thinking about that many times throughout the haunt season. Like, there was that piece missing, It
was a void.
Yeah,
it definitely was a void.
What am I missing? There's haunt season, We start off with HHN opening night, then we move right into Scare Farm, and then usually around that time is Queen Mary's media night, and it just wasn't there.
It was really weird. It was very, very weird not to have Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. Nikki and I even had that conversation. I don't know if it's on the show or off the show, which happens so often. Like, we're like, did we talk about that on the show? I don't remember. But we had that conversation basically saying, like, it feels weird to not do Dark Harbor.
Yeah.
It feels like it should be here. It feels like it should be next weekend or this weekend coming up, but it's just not here. It's almost like your dog died and you're expecting them to run up with like a toy in their mouth. You're like, oh, that's never going to happen.
Bad comparison.
Yeah, but honestly, it was, I don't know. I'm like, overall, I'm very thankful that we had the season, but it also, I don't know, it just feels like a fever dream almost,
You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it right there.
It definitely did. But I think that's it's definitely a good jumping off point for us here, just because we did so much and because it was so intense, inevitably we're going to have these moments in our favorites from this year that are going to just feel different than any other year. 2021 is going to go down in history as one of the most craziest years for haunts, at least for me, and a lot of different reasons, a lot of different memories, and a lot of it stemming from the fact that this year feels just that much more intense. But let's waste no more time and jump into some of these memories of ours and our favorite ABCDEFG of the haunt season. Now, you guys know that my favorite event in the world is not Scary Farm. That is my end all be all. I love all the other events, but Scary Farm will always be the one that I fall back to.
Amen,
the one at the end of the season when someone's like, hey, how many times did you visit? 15? 16, 17 maybe. They're like, that's too much. I'm like, no, that's not enough. I wanted to go more. I just couldn't. But that for me is like the end all be all. And if I were to choose an event this year that I feel like was running on all cylinders and felt like it never skipped a year, it was Scary Farm. Yeah. Something about Scary Farm transcends normal time almost, where it just feels like it never left. And I felt like the scare actors had this hunger, the guests had a hunger for it. Everybody who helped contribute to Scary Farm running in 2021 made it feel like they never missed a beat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about not Scary Farm. I mean, there's the history, there's the legacy, but to me, it's definitely a lot of the performers, right? The performers.
Oh, yeah.
The heart and soul of that event. And, you're totally right, Gabe. It's like, because we didn't get 2020, because they didn't have that full season to do what they love this year, it just felt like non-stop from them. And, man, I bet they were exhausted, but I'm so thankful for them, and they really brought it. So kudos to all of you guys.
What's funny is that I was talking to a couple of the scare actors, and they were like, this year is insane. I was like, how so? They're like, well, guests are just way crazier than they normally would be. And they were saying, like, we feel like it's because there was a year gone and people forgot how to act at an event like this, because they're like, people are handsier, people are mouthier, people are just nuts. So, I feel like that from the viewpoint of a monster and from a viewpoint of as like a visitor or a guest like us, it totally makes sense.
And, Gabe, to that point, and, Scott, I'd love to hear your opinion on this too. I felt like this year was busier than it's ever been at all events. Like, I mean, maybe not Hallow Scream because it's new, but like Horror Nights was packed like every night that I was there. Scary Farm was busy on nights that I didn't expect it to be. It's just like every time that I went somewhere. Six Flags Fright Fest. I mean, you could barely walk around there. It's nuts. It felt like everybody, because 2020 was skipped, everybody was like, well, this year I'm just going ham.
Yeah,
and I don't even know
agree.
just like haunt fans. I think that it's just like everybody wanted to get out of the house.
Right.
And to an extent it was good for the parks. Obviously they're generating so much revenue from this. But also to that point, we got to look to next year what the parks will do with that. Will they, do better on operational standpoints if they're expecting these large of crowds? Will they not oversell their events? Will they make it to where the event is enjoyable without having to do a front of the line pass? These are all questions to be asked for next year, because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for them to capitalize after making so much money from these events this year. Because no doubt about it, this is probably one of the years that they've generated the most revenue.
Scott, I have an answer for you. The answer is no, they're not.
Obviously, but one can think positive, all right?
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I feel like Horror Nights and Fright Fest are definitely really hard to visit when they're packed. I feel like Scary Farm is actually a relatively easy event to go to, even on a packed night, and still have an enjoyable time. I've gone.
The reason why I'm so
when it's been nuts.
The reason why I'm okay, I will agree to your point halfway on that, Gabe, because if you get to Scary Farm at 7, you're not going to get that crowd till like 9 o'clock. If you leave like at 9 o'clock, you're golden, even if you go on a Saturday. But if you stay till then the rest of the crowd starts to walk in, since all the kids visiting the park don't drive. Everyone starts to walk in, and that's when it gets a little bit rowdy.
I do have to say that there is the rowdiness of the kids, and I think that's an every year thing.
Oh yeah.
But I think from I'm definitely talking about it from the perspective of somebody who goes multiple times, who's not worrying about trying to go on everything all at the same time. I don't need to go on every single maze, every single visit. The only issues that I truly had were getting into the park. Because I live in Simi Valley, and getting down to Knott's at opening on a weekday, that's just not going to happen when I'm working. So I would show up around 9, which is exactly the time that you said, Scott. Yeah. And, I would be parking in the Western lot, and the line of cars just going down the street trying to get into that lot is insane, to the point where people are like, oh, there's your driver. I'm going to go in there. I can park over there. No, don't do that. That's the employee parking lot. And then they go in, and then they try to come back into line. And it's just absolute chaos. And that's horrible. But as soon as I got into the park, I felt fine. Even though with the crowds, I was still able to enjoy myself and like immerse myself in the environments that Not Scary Farm had this year. So I don't know. That's just my perspective. And once again, fully admit that it's coming from a place of privilege, because I was one of the few that had a Scary Farm pass this year.
You're the only one, Gabe.
I wouldn't be shocked if I was. It was so rare.
We spent so much money going there.
I think I spent like $200 just on damn Knott's tickets, man.
Like toward the end of the month there, I was going there once a week, and I was like, you know what? I don't even care.
It's bad because I got to that point too where I was like, it's just $50 on my paycheck, no big deal.
No biggie.
I have my 2022 pass secured, so that's the nice thing. And if you're listening to this right now and you haven't bought it yet, buy it now.
No, don't buy it now, because
you
I
don't
haven't
even need to go to
Knott's, so don't buy it
just
now.
get it just for the pass.
I honestly guarantee you that they're not going to release it to the general public like they have in the past. I have a feeling that it's going to continue being like a past member exclusive thing.
Or they'll just be like Horror Nights and upcharge it to like $150.
Which I don't care. I don't mind.
I'll be fine with that.
Yeah.
So I called Knott's because my current pass is the pass that I purchased in 2019 for 2020. So it's getting pushed over. So the whole thing that happened is basically like, okay, it's more than a full year. It's going to go into January, February, March of 2022. And at that point, then you're going to get a totally new offer for payments every month. So I personally can't buy my Scary Farm pass until that happens. I can't buy it now. So I called them and I was trying to say like, hey, can I just buy that outright by itself? And they said no. But what they did tell me was that they're going to sell double the amount. They're going to have double the amount of passes this upcoming season than they did this season. And it was exactly for what we've all talked about. It was the fact that they had passes that they still needed to give people from 2020, plus the ones that they sold for 2021. So they just had less to give out. So I don't think it's going to be as insane. I actually disagree with John. I don't think it's going to be a pass holder exclusive thing anymore. I think it's purely going to be just a problem for 2021 because of the circumstances of, canceling events and things like that. So I
we'll
think
see.
I was told that they're doubling. They were doubling them, so I'm hoping he's right. But I'm almost at the point where I'm just gonna buy my new pass now and forgo the different price,
think that we should all
just so I
take
can get my
away-
Scary Farm pass.
I think we should all take this away from this year in specific, is that even if we expect it, don't expect it. That's my that's my golden thing.
I thought you were about to say to get rid of the Scary Farm pass, and I was going to be like, I'm deleting you off this podcast right now. Get off of this thing. But yeah, so for you guys, what event did you feel kind of like was running on all cylinders for you? Because that was Scary Farm, it was for me. But what about you guys?
I got to say, so this is not a theme park haunt, but I went and checked out Delusion Reaper's Remorse for the first time. Like,
it's so freaking good.
Oh my god, I had never done Delusion before, and I'm sad.
Scott, have you done Delusion?
See, that's why everyone was talking about how great it was this year. And I was like, damn, I don't have time for it. But everybody was saying it was great.
Yeah,
it was
phenomenal.
It was
cast,
jaw dropping.
Yeah, absolutely. The cast that we got the night that we went, I mean, oh my god, give them Oscars, give them Emmys, give them Grammys, like everything. Just throw it at them, because honestly, they really just nailed the performances. They really made the experience all the better because they were in it to win it. And let me tell you, that is the closest I've ever been to being like in a horror movie without actually being in a horror movie, and it was fantastic. I mean, 10 out of 10, dude.
What's funny is that people always talk about horror nights when it comes to like living a horror movie. I actually think that Delusion is a much closer representation of what that would feel like,
100%,
as opposed to horror nights.
Well, it depends what kind of horror you're looking for. Are you looking to live in a funny clown shooting you with a ray gun, or are you looking to live in like, oh shit, there's a killer coming to get me?
All of it.
All of the above, yeah.
Killer clowns coming to get you.
Well, I mean, in terms of Delusion, the theming changes every single year, so it's very hard to kind of nail down exactly what it's going to be until you hear it. But Delusion, and Scott, since you've not done it, I don't really want to spoil it unless you're going to go out and read spoilers on your own. But it's very, very theatrical, and it definitely, there's a lot of moments where you're almost like, this feels like cinematic. This feels like an opening shot of like a movie almost, and I'm living it. And it's definitely different in terms of the scares. It isn't always the hidden boo jump scare. A lot of it is tension. A lot of it is building atmosphere, or just this particular environment is just scary. The one thing, because they're not going to bring it back next year, so I'll tell you this one little tidbit that I got to experience, and a funny story attached to it is at one point I got separated from my group by a piano teacher who was a little bit too aggressive with prior students, if you will. And so she was trying to teach me how to play these piano chords, and there was a dead body sitting at the piano next to me, and she kept slamming his head into the piano keys as hard as she could every time I messed up. And that would make me jump because I just wasn't expecting her to do that. And, eventually I found out, we actually interviewed Peggy McGee, who is the ringmaster at Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. She was the piano teacher that I had when I was in there. So she's at Delusion this year because she's not doing Dark Harbor. So she's the understudy for that, and she's also the understudy for the main actress, the main character as well. So I had no idea it was her until we talked and we discovered it on the podcast together, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, I think that when you bring up that whole theatrical aspect of Delusion is, honestly, just talking at a general haunt standpoint in general, I think that's what's like makes me a sucker for mazes the most, is when there's, like you said, Oscar-worthy performances. That's because, there's the jump scares and, you get scared and whatnot, but it's the actors that really bring everything to life.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And cinematic is the correct word for it, Gabriel. I'm sure I pretty much used the same word when I did my review of it. It was truly a cinematic experience, and it's tough too to like do a theatrical performance in that kind of environment where it's more guided by a performer. You going portion to portion in a room.
It's so unpredictable.
It's very, very hard to do it, but they have it down to a science. They nailed it. And, myself and my partner, we're theater geeks. She's probably the bigger theater geek for sure. But, we know how hard it is to put on a performance like that. And let me tell you, they nailed it. They nailed it. And, kudos to them, truly.
From a technical standpoint, it's very, very impressive. And before we move on for this, John, without spoiling it for Scott, the part where somebody has to carry something for a long time, it kind of becomes their friend a bit. That happened to Nikki, and inherently because I'm with Nikki, it's me too. So the part where she picked it up, we both literally screamed because we just were not expecting that to happen. So we got the shit scared out of us pretty damn well. So that was a really fun moment. Sorry, Scott, to leave you out of this.
For a group trip to Delusion next year.
Hey, honestly, I thought they were still going this past weekend. You could have gone. It was their last weekend, I think.
I'm pretty sure this coming weekend is the last one. I think it's November 21st or something.
Maybe I'll have to look into it then.
Yeah, look into tickets, Scott. If you can score them, do it.
Scott, if you're gonna go, I want to go with you. I
feel like you guys are selling me on life insurance right now. Like, sign up for this right now.
Get the big package.
You're gonna need this, Sonny.
So for you, Scott, what was that one event that just stood out from the rest?
As far as all of them goes, we already touched up on this, but operationally, I feel like all the major haunts weren't there. All the indie haunts killed it. But as far as a put together event goes, and we're speaking in theme park terms, not Scary Farm for sure. You can't say that anything else is better than that as far as the theme park haunt goes. They were able to still bring back some of our fan favorites, but also, adding twists here and there as they do every year. But they didn't use the excuse of a budget. They didn't use the excuse of nobody wants to work or anything like that. They put it all together, and they brought a great story as far as the history of Knott's goes. Yeah, between Origins, between Mesmer, between what's his name, the conductor. They just killed it. And that brand new zone, Roaring 20s, awesome zone. I think that's good. Ghost Town will always be my favorite, but Roaring 20s it's a strong competition right now just because of how interactive and amazing. That's an Oscar-worthy performance with all those scare actors in there.
And they had their work cut out for them too, because unlike Ghost Town, very similar to how kind of Carnival feels. It's bright. There's no place to hide. You're out in the open. There's no shadows. There's the fog dissipates almost immediately. So you really have to find the technique that works. That's really going to get people. And I saw some phenomenal techniques, and as well as the fact that there was some really good props too. The flappers who were walking around with the cigar boxes that had fingers in them, and they close it really fast in people's faces. One of the bartenders had this bit that he would do that worked really well, where he would walk up to people who are standing on the sidewalk and look up and above people and yell at something that was above them. So inevitably those people would look behind and look up and not see anything. And when they turn around, he's in their face. And I saw people run because they were just not expecting it. And it was such a good technique. And Scott, I hands down agree with you here that Roaring 20s was one of the breakout hits for the season for me.
And let's not forget, it's called Goring 20s. I messed that up.
Sorry.
But
Roaring 20s area,
I like what you brought up about how they had their work cut out for them, because it was in a bright area. It's really hard to be quote unquote scary, but they still made it work, And overall, I feel like Knott's is, and I say this in all my videos all the time, I feel like Knott's is headed in the right direction to be they already are a top competitor, but to be okay, yeah, Knott's beat everybody this year with not even a question. They're killing it. Every single year, they're bringing something new. Every single year, they're tying some history into these mazes, and it's just awesome. I'm all here for it.
Yeah, and I think it
feels very much like old Knott's, old vintage Knott's.
It definitely does, and I think this is a really good kind of transition point to talk about scare zones this season, because for me, the Goring 20s is one of those scare zones that stands out from the rest, and I think a lot of it really comes down to tone. And one thing I like about that Knott's does is that although every single one of the scare zones is scary, they all have a very drastically different tone and vibe to them. So things don't kind of mesh together really easily. The Hollows feels very different than Ghost Town, as much as Ghost Town feels very different than Carnival or the Goring 20s. And I think there was something about this party-like atmosphere with the jazz swing band playing above the scare zone.
Oh,
It felt like a Halloween party. Like, it was awesome.
It felt like a Halloween party, and it almost was like the perfect distraction for people because they get this sense of security among them because they're just dancing, they're having fun, and before you know it, you have a monster in your face.
I like how you said that,
and
Gabe.
it's
That was
fantastic.
perfect.
Thank you. I guess I don't know.
That's why you're a podcaster.
I think of good words sometimes. That's super smart.
Big boy words.
Big boy words. So good. But no, yeah, it was a fantastic scare zone, and I think it's a great addition to the park. I actually loved it, and there was a few times. This is one of my favorite memories from the season. Is the clowns from Carnival invaded the Goring 20s, and I have video of this where like the gangsters were like swinging their bats and crowbars at them, like, "Hey, get out of here, get out of our town," and all this stuff, and the clowns were like making fun of them. It was the weirdest thing that I saw this season, and it was fantastic. As well, on top of that, they did some impromptu slider shows when, the last couple of nights in that scare zone.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time that I visited the scare zone. Like it truly lined up perfectly because I went in there, we were walking around a little bit, really taking in the ambient, and then the big band started, and I was like, I am 1,000%.
It totally changes it. It changes it hands down.
It's such a cool addition to a scare zone, and to your point, Scott. I mean, Knott's is number one in my heart always, on this coast at least. And it reigns supreme because they're not afraid to try new things.
Oh, that's such a good point.
And that's what makes them so, unique. That's what makes them the best, is that they're not stuck in a formula, and they'll go out of their way to try something new. So to stick a full band with dancers in a scare zone, like that, in my mind, I'm like, no, that would never work. And yet it was so perfect. It was a great marriage of both worlds. And so Goring 20s to me this year, like, major shout out to Silver Scream Queens. That scare zone was always like on fire. However, Goring 20s for me this year was number one because holy smokes, man.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, John, because like I was gonna say the same thing. Knott's is not afraid to try stuff. They are always doing trial and error. Some stuff works, some stuff is a hit. And, at the end of the day, that's what makes Knott's great, because once they find that thing that works, something like the Goring 20s or something like a maze such as Mesmer, they just run with it and just keep building and building and building on it.
They refine.
They what's up?
I said they refine and refine and refine that stuff.
I thought you were saying we're fine. I was like, I know I'm fine, Gabe.
We're fine. We're fine. I'm trying not to cry talking about it.
Prime example is like, who the hell thought they were going to do a mine train overlay? They've always tried mine train overlays, and this one was more fun. It had the creepy
factor. That was
it.
super divisive, by the way. That was like a crowd splitter, and I'm definitely on the side that I loved every second of it.
You know why I loved it is because it had your fun, Halloween fun, and then you get into the more cavernous area where the witch starts laughing and starts talking about murdering children. So
it's a freaking rug pull, man. It's like the closest we're gonna get to like a twist ending of style of kind of experience.
Knott's is doing great. They are a 10 out of 10. I hope they continue this.
And John, you mentioned Silver Scream Queens. Like, that scare zone definitely stands out for me this year, just simply based on that soundtrack. That soundtrack from Slash was just, it was chasing, it was intense, and it was memorable. And that's what I loved about it so much. And the greatest part is that this year it wasn't a situation where you could only go through it if you exit the maze. It was open up, so you could walk into it if you wanted to.
I loved that.
This is the best part about it.
Stood there and listened and just enjoyed it, because the actors that were in that scare zone were so energetic, and they were getting in people's faces, and the makeup and the prosthetics and the masks were just so good. There was something so intense about that scare zone that I love so much.
Well, it was the perfect combination of score, of ambient, and of performer. Like, it literally, all three of those notches were ticked off in my book. And so, yeah, it made it super exciting. It made it super alive. And it was cool to just sit there and watch, because, man, the performers were just nailing people left and right. The fog was really helping them out. The lighting was beautiful. And again, Slash's score, I mean, It really
Good God,
pieced
man.
everything together. I mean, from the very beginning of that maze to the end where you get to that scare zone, I mean, it's easily one of my favorite scores that he's done at Horror Nights. And I hope he continues that relationship because it's a prime example of how a perfect score can really change, much like it can change a movie, it could also change a maze. And good God, it was great.
I definitely want to get
release of cowards.
Right? What if they do a freaking vinyl release of that?
That'd be
Crap.
awesome. That's sign
Holy
out right
crap.
away.
Ooh, doggy.
So I want to get back to talking about Bride of Frankenstein Lives because that was an incredible experience for me, and I have a lot to say about it. But I definitely don't want to forget to mention a couple other scare zones before we jump into those mazes. And for me, some of the bigger scare zones that I actually really enjoy are at Fright Fest. Fright Fest scare zones to me are so damn good, and a lot of it has to do with the actors and also Scott Ramp's prosthetics from the Scream team. Those prosthetics are so good. Like they to me make Fright Fest. Like those are the reasons why I go to Fright Fest for the prosthetics and the scare actors, and the scare actors in Nightmares as well as City Under Siege.
Oh
and,
man,
and was it what is it? The entry scare zone, the demon one. What is it called? Shoot, it's escaping me right now.
I'm still so new.
I'm blanking
I'm
right
pretty
now.
sure I want to say in 2019 it was called Demon's Lair or something.
It's not Demon's Lair. I forgot what it was called, but it's the entry scare zone with all the demons. Like those three stand out so significantly to me. Like the clowns in City Under Siege are so freaking good.
They're worth
so
the price of admission alone.
good.
Like, if you go there and hang out in City Under Siege, the fact that they have a slider show and just all the antics they get into, it's worth it.
And they're constantly interacting with guests.
Yeah.
And they take pictures with them. They take pictures with people, and let's talk about that slider show really quick because I am such a proponent of lifting things up when they need to be lifted up and supporting the things that need to be supported and making sure that these people get their credit where credit is due. And I cannot tell you as much as I am right now that is one of the best slider shows that I've ever seen at any place.
Yeah,
anywhere.
It was really fun.
The amount of physical comedy plus just the choreography, plus the sliding, plus the music works so well. The synergy between all those things works so well. And I think it's one of those shows that it's built by people who care so much, and you could feel that in the show where it makes a difference. And I want them to put that show on a pedestal. Like they need to make a bigger deal about it and maybe even give them more room or give them a chance to do different things, because when those guys and gals are putting their minds to it, they're putting together some fantastic content.
Yeah, Fright Fest really needs to just throw money at that, man. Get a bigger PA, get some more lighting, get like actual techs out there to like run the show and make it super, super official, because it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It's great as it is. Now I can't imagine, taking it to that next level. I mean, you have solid entertainment there.
Yeah, it's really that good. Scott, have you seen it?
Not the Six Flags ones, no, but I've seen plenty of videos on it, and I just want to say, like you say, like, raising stuff up when it's good, it's like slider shows in general should just be like more of a common thing. We have sliders all over the place, but we need more slider shows because, years and years ago, I want to say like 2015, when the Haunted Stadium over here in Lake Elsinore was still a thing, they were a very, very small haunt, but they did some freaking awesome slider shows, and not a lot of people went to the event, so I could just enjoy it, when nobody else is watching it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think that Knott's needs to bring back their slider show in some way, some shape or form.
Well, just think of the ones that they do it, but
they need to do it.
Places like Midsummer or like Scare Lane when is a thing. Those are awesome.
Yeah, Decade Brigade. In which we have Decade Brigade is mostly Knott's people, so not having that be a thing, but hopefully Decade Brigade can come back and do something pretty cool, because I know that they were there at Awaken the Spirits, but obviously there was no show, but they had their booth, so I was talking to them about it. Which, by the way, I actually might go out and practice sliding with those guys at some point, because I have my slider gear.
Before, Gabe?
Yes, actually, I've been sliding all Halloween.
Sliding's like the most fun thing to do ever if you're
It's
a haunt fan.
super fun, except it's way more intense than I thought it was going to be. And I was like drenched in sweat, and I was like, I can't breathe.
Yeah, it's also, guys, if you're gonna get into it, just be prepared to like be dying after a couple minutes already.
Also, just be prepared to hurt yourself because it's going to happen. Just trial and error, figure out how it works.
Days after.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot, but it was definitely worth it. But yeah, so that scares the City Under Siege. That slider show, absolutely phenomenal. You have pink and blue clown, then you have the green clown. They all have like these different characters. I absolutely love them. But then I can't finish Fright Fest talk without talking about Lorraine out in Nightmare Scare Zone. Lorraine isn't the type of scare actor who's like in your face and like saying creepy, like scary shit to make you scared. You know, she's an interactive character where she's going to make you feel creeped out. Like, I kind of don't want to talk to this person anymore because they make me feel uncomfortable. You know, she's a witch and she has a severed foot in her hand that has a shoe on. And she's talking about how she took it from somebody, or she's trying to get people to drink her chunky pumpkin lattes, which are like a thing. Or she's like, she told me Nikki wasn't with me, but she's like, I want to see Nikki because she has nice nails. The nails that I have right now, I took them off of somebody and I don't like them. So I want to take them off of somebody else that I like. And just these really weird, creepy conversations. And they're just so good. It's the type of interactions that leave a lasting impression on you. You know, it isn't just a jump scare. It is an interaction, a memory. And I think that's what's really important when it comes down to like just kind of the overall experiences of haunts. It's not just the scares, but really leaving an imprint of a memory on people. And sometimes it's these unique interactions with characters that no one else is really going to get.
Totally.
So Fright Fest, that's great. I love their scares. It's so damn good. But moving on, let's talk mazes.
Actually, Gabe, you just triggered a memory in my mind right now. Real quick before we move on to mazes, I do want to give a shout out to pretty much all the damn performers at Hallow Scream San Diego in the scare zones. They were incredible. Like, they were a lot of fun. All of them were.
I didn't want to bring that up because I thought we were going to touch up on Hallow Scream, but I'm happy John did.
We had fantastic interactions with them all night.
Yeah, see, I didn't go to this event. It's all the way in San Diego. That's hard for me to get out there. Also, I don't have a great track record with San Diego in general.
You know what's awesome about them is that regardless of the crowd level, because, you know, Hallow Scream didn't see that much of a crowd this year, they were still, every guest that would walk through the zone, they would interact with her. Like, all three of them would swarm on them. And it just, the interaction that they had, it seems like these characters have been doing it for years, and maybe they have come down from different haunts that they've worked years prior. But, you know, I find it hard to believe that those are all returning characters from different events, because they had a lot at Hallow Scream.
Yeah, for like a first year of like an inaugural year, they did an amazing job out there. Like, they were constantly interacting, and much like the interactions like you mentioned, Gabe, at Fright Fest. So yeah, I just had to mention it. I just had to shout them out because they did a pretty damn good job out there, man.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna have to check them out in the next year, because I was a little sad I didn't get to, but you know, having heard everyone's experiences, and I heard some great experiences, I've also heard some not the best experiences, but those are all like inaugural year type things that they could work out. So hopefully next year I'll be able to go visit, get a hotel, so I don't have to drive home at the same night, because it's a very, very long drive. But I'm glad that you guys had fun in that one. But moving on, let's talk mazes, and finally let's talk about Bride of Frankenstein Lives, because this maze from top to bottom, at least for me, it's almost on par with the original Monsters maze that they did a few years back in terms of execution, and on every single level of execution, living up to what a universal standard should be.
Yes.
To me, this is that example. It's that and the original Universal Monsters maze that they created. You know, the one with all the graffiti on the outside? Those for me are the two, but this one is just so good on every level. And for me, a big thing about it, and I said this on our show during our review, I wrote about it in our article, I said it's all about the visual literacy of that maze. It's in the storytelling. You know, you have the story being told visually to everybody, and you could understand what was happening even without the soundtrack or the dialogue happening. You could understand it. And that's a big part of being able to at least communicate story to people, especially in an attraction that's people potentially running through it because they're so scared. There are these moments that are very obvious what's happening. And a lot of that comes down to the set design. A lot of that comes down to the actors themselves, things like that. On top of that, you have the soundtrack by Slash that really pushes forward the emotions of each one of those scenes and really helps dig into the story. And then on top of that, you have the prosthetics and the makeup and everything else that really, and there's even a progression of that makeup. You have Dracula's daughters who progressively get worse and worse as the maze goes on. So for me, that is just like such a phenomenal example of what a Halloween Horror Nights maze should be. Now, when it comes down to like saying that, of course, there's a little bit of sadness just inevitably because like then you get mazes like Stranger Things 2, where it's like, how can a Stranger Things 2 live on the same pedestal as Killer Clowns from Outer Space does? The same thing with like having the Bride of Frankenstein Lives. It's crazy to me, but this was definitely a memorable experience, and I went through it like 8 times. I marathoned at the end of the night just so that I could soak in every last second I had to just remember that maze from top to bottom.
And it was like so underrated too, because most of the times that I went, it was consistently the maze with the like lowest wait time. Well, y'all are sleeping on this.
Let's be honest though, because people inevitably want to go to IP stuff. People want to go to IP stuff. That's always inevitably going to be the thing that happens at Universal Halloween Horror Nights.
Which is completely fine because us fans will gladly take the 20-minute wait.
And it's funny because I'm actually not, even though it is IP, Bride of Frankenstein is IP. I'm not referring to it as IP because, it is a Universal owned property thing that, that's been in existence for so long that in my mind, it isn't considered part of that IP maze list. But when it comes down to it, people are going to go to the things that are familiar to them, and it happens every time when there's an original maze. People are going to go to Hill House rather than go to the what's it called, Pandora's Box. Or
prime example with Exorcist. Why in the world was that 180 minutes every night?
People would rather go to Exorcist than go to other things, or even other years the El Cucuy wouldn't have a long line, or La Llorona wouldn't have a long line, all those things. So that's inevitably going to happen.
Right, totally.
I'm lost. What?
No, I said you're lost, dude.
Oh yeah, they're lost, man. Those were all phenomenal mazes, and I think that when it comes down to Universal Studios and their original mazes, I think that's where it's at. I actually truly believe that.
I do want to say, now that we're talking about this and IPs and whatnot, I feel like that's one thing that Hollywood struggles with the most compared to Orlando. Is Orlando gives the fans what they want, and that's why you have these fans raving on Twitter all the time saying, this is great, this is wonderful. The casuals, they're going to be there. They're always going to give you money regardless. But at the end of the day, the fans that keep coming back, the fans that keep spending money are the dedicated ones who would love to see another freaking Case Files Legendary Truth Maze come back, stuff like that. And with the Bride of Frankenstein Lives, I really hope they continue the Universal Monster trend, especially in Hollywood, because the Bride of Frankenstein Lives, it's the perfect example, like you said, Gabe, of what a Horror Nights maze should be. Minus the black walls and talk and all. And I hate people that were like, I hated the Bride because of the black walls. No, if you appreciated the scenes that Hollywood put on in that tiny location of Persian Courtyard and compared it to other mazes, you'd be like amazed at how great that one was.
Yeah, no, I agree with you hands down. I think the black wall conversation is tiresome at this point, just because I don't think that's going to end. At this point, it's like it's beating a dead horse, and nothing's going to change.
There's some merit to it occasionally.
There's 100%, dude. Let's not beat around the bush, or let's not beat around the dead horse. There's 100% merit to it. There is merit to the argument. I'm simply stating that I think that continue to pound that drum constantly and in defiance of like even getting in your own way of enjoying something is getting to be too much. Right. It's like I'd rather sit here and moan about black walls than actually enjoy what's going on.
If you're
Now,
letting that determine whether or not you like a maze, then you're the issue.
Right. I mean, because
Yeah.
in my personal opinion, right, like we had Hill House, which had very little black walls. It was probably only like the finale. The last couple of scares were in the black hallways. And we had Bride of Frankenstein Lives, which had blackout sections, right? I enjoyed Bride of Frankenstein Lives way more than I did Hill House. So
And you know what's funny is when Employer Preview came out and everyone was saying, yeah, Hill House has no black hallways. I may be the sole one who's giving this opinion right here, but I feel like the reason that I had so much fun in Bride of Frankenstein compared to Hill House is, yes, even though Hill House had no black hallways, there were a couple hallways where it was detailed, but nothing was going on. It was just a
Right.
hallway.
Yeah.
where
yeah.
Bride of Frankenstein Lives was just hitting you like left, right. Every section there was
Yeah.
something to see. There was something coming at you, and it was very much a cinematic experience. And so that's what they did right with Bride of Frankenstein Lives, is that from the second that you hit, you heard Slash's guitar start, wailing on you
Oh,
right
so
at the
good.
entrance. It didn't
It's
let
so
you go.
good.
Like, the maze grabbed onto you and it didn't let you go at all until not even the ending, because then you ended up in the scare zone. So truly a phenomenal piece of work, man. And Gabe, you hit it right at the head in the beginning. It's like now Bride of Frankenstein Lives is right up there with me with 2018's Universal Monsters, which I'm pretty sure Universal Monsters was like my favorite maze, number one out of all of the Horror Nights Hollywood mazes I've been through. But now, I don't know, dude.
Yeah, it's
Thank
definitely
you, John. I'm so happy. I'm not alone on that.
it's definitely on par with the original Universal Monsters maze. And it's hard because I think there's such an affinity for that original maze. And I think there's memories attached to that, emotions attached to that, which are kind of hard to overcome at a certain point. And inevitably when it comes down to deciding those things and then saying like definitively this one was my favorite, those emotions and those feelings are going to come into play.
Also, can I
Definitely.
just say, like, can we get some more female horror representation? Because I
Yes,
think that's another thing that
please.
made this maze great. It was awesome.
Absolutely, man.
I completely agree.
And I'm gonna go out one step further, man. And I'm waiting for the day that we get a female-led creative team that takes on these stories.
There are some great
from
creators out
start
there.
to finish. You know what I mean? So
I mean, let's take it even a step further. More people of color too.
sure, yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, yeah. There's always room for expansion, folks.
Yep,
Just
always.
remember that.
Of course, and we're not sitting here, bashing John Murdy. John Murdy has put a lot into this event and has really made it what it is. It's wanting to see other people's voices be heard,
Times are developing, man.
which I think is really going to be an interesting factor when it comes to creating these events like this. I don't know the full creative team in Orlando. It really seems like they have a lot of people's input there, and it really feels like there's a lot of different things kind of coming out of Orlando, which is kind of interesting.
And you see the success of that.
Exactly.
it's
So
very
That's why
evident.
you need multiple voices in your ear. It can't just be one person. And like you said, we're not talking crap on Murdy, but it just can't be one person calling the shots.
Yeah, like what I want to say is, bro, it doesn't have to just be you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, give yourself a break. Maybe just produce the Universal.
You know, you're going to be a
Monsters,
great creator no matter
mazes.
what.
Exactly. Yeah, but expand.
like three people, each one gets like two mazes or
Sure.
three mazes or something. You know what
Exactly,
I mean?
Or just all work on it
guarantee
collaboratively.
Yeah, exactly. I guarantee you're gonna sleep better at night. You know what I mean? Like,
Definitely.
Gonna
things are
stop
gonna be
complaining
divvied up a
about
little more.
getting a jet lag from Ireland.
Well, that's got to be hard, man.
That
So,
sucks, dude. That's
get
not
some more
fun.
Z's, John. Get some more Z's. It's all good, bro.
Yeah, but
Hire me anyway.
is that what all of this was about? Just to get to you saying you want a job?
No. But
And John's like, but if the opportunity presents itself,
Your
I
phone's
wouldn't
ringing.
say
Your phone is ringing
no.
right now. Your phone is ringing off the hook right
and they
now.
had to play hard to get.
Maybe I want it. Maybe I don't. I don't know. But in terms of Halloween Hornets, yeah, I do think diversity in the creative team would definitely bring a lot of really cool things to the table.
And that's all haunts too. And
Oh
just,
yeah, totally. No, I think all across the board, and I don't know how much you guys listen to our show or not, but we've been trying really hard to feature female voices on the show that work in haunts, who are in the community and things like that, because it's male dominated. There's a lot of guys in this industry in themed entertainment. So getting more female voices on our show.
And I feel like slowly we're getting to a point where that's more just normal,
Yeah.
Because even with me, it's like I've never not supported like women in the creative field or anything like that, but it's just never been as big of a thing where now you see stuff like Bride of Frankenstein, or you see these female led teams, creative teams, and it's just like, damn, you really appreciate the fact that, people can bring stuff like this to life,
Exactly. And other maces that kind of come to mind in terms of kind of memorable ones. I mean, I don't think any of us would argue that Mesmer wasn't a standout maze this year.
Mesmer. Oh man. Oh, what a
eye candy
for the eyes. Man.
Eye candy beyond all belief. The only issue I have with the maze, and this is by design and it's their own fault because the entire maze is so damn good, that the ending was underwhelming. But that was because the entire experience was so good that literally anything would have been pale in comparison to the rest of it.
Mesmer was just freaking next level, man. That's all I gotta say.
It was very next level. And I think if that is the direction that Knott's is headed in terms of its new mazes, I think we're really, really in for like almost another renaissance of Knott's.
Let's not forget how long that damn maze was to walk through it too.
Let me tell you,
sweaty at the end of it.
I was lost. Like I feel like I had a pretty good feel for that location, especially because it's been kind of the same route, if you will, or very similar route for the past couple of years. And walking out of Mesmer, I was like,
because it was the same maze, John. That's why.
Well, no, I'm talking like Black Magic. I'm talking about, they all kind of followed the same.
Gotcha.
If you will. Like,
I'm just poking fun of you.
But like, I walked out of the exit of Mesmer, and I was like, how in the hell did I end up back at the entrance? Like, where did I just go?
Because it was a maze-mer. Get it?
No, it was amazing.
No,
thanks for coming on the podcast, guys.
Well, end it here.
Honestly, walking through that maze is just, and it was such a surreal experience. You don't expect that when you're walking through something new like that. You really don't expect that. And Gabe, you brought up the point that the finale was week 3, and that was the only thing. The only thing that I felt the maze suffered from was the pre-show, which I called in my video that they were going to get rid of it because it just they can't do pre-shows unless you're doing it like Paranormal. Paranormal is a mastermind at doing pre-shows. You can't do pre-shows like Mesmer or the Shadowlands ones, etc., etc.
What's crazy is that everyone talked about it being a pre-show, but literally opening night when I went in there, it wasn't a pre-show. I don't think there was a single moment that I went through that maze where they stopped everyone to watch.
See, that's so weird.
Even opening night, it was just walk through, go at the beginning of the day.
I guess that ties into more of like, Knott's is trying things again to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we'll just pull it.
And see, in my experience, we went opening weekend, Sunday night. We didn't go like opening night. Opening weekend, Sunday night. When we got to Mesmer, nobody stopped us in that room. However, the entire group collectively was like, we're stopping here. We're going to watch this right now. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, this is a good group right here. But yeah, so it's interesting. That's if I had any complaints about Mesmer is that the story, you're walking through it so fast that I feel like you can miss a lot of things. I kept wishing that we get stuck in a conga line or something so I could really like take in all of the things that were happening around us, like the entire story, because there's a lot to it. And obviously there's a lot visually too. So you really do feel pretty hypnotized when you walk out of that maze because you're listening, you're seeing, you're going down the path. They have optical illusions in there. I mean, it really is like a masterpiece. Dude.
Must buy more Knott's products.
Yeah, exactly. Must renew my annual pass. Add on parking.
Some of the scares in there were pretty unique too. Like I really enjoy the clock scene where he pushes out the clock and just comes out of nowhere right from behind it. I thought that was clever.
Yeah,
very clever, and we kind of already said it, but just visually, it was pretty stunning. One of the scenes and it was such a minimal piece. It was really a transition hallway, but just having the metronomes on the wall and they're all clicking with the sequence of the lights being lit up along the walls, they're so hypnotic in a way that you don't notice the scare. You don't notice the scare actor that's like right there on the wall. You just don't see her. So things like that are definitely stand out.
Like it's to the point where like Paranormal Inc. R.I.P. I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss the hell out of it. However, the one thing that has me excited about next year, especially losing Paranormal Inc., is getting to go through Mesmer again, because I just couldn't get enough of it.
You know what's great about it is it never really had that long of a wait.
Yeah, it never got intense.
See, I got the nights that I went, the wait was pretty long. We waited probably like 45 minutes for it, like a couple of times that I went. However, when you go at the end of the night, like you just breeze through it, man.
No, so I feel like 45 minutes compared to Paranormal, which was freaking 100 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, sure. And it's no 2-hour Exorcist wait either.
I'd wait 45 minutes for Mesmer any day.
Yeah. Same.
Totally. I mean, I think I'd wait an hour and a half for Paranormal. For me, like I actually still to this day feel like Paranormal is probably one of the scariest mazes that Scary Farm has ever created.
It's terrifying
in its history. It even up into its last moments, it was still absolutely insanely intense.
It's because it feels so real. An insane asylum? What's more real than that?
A real one, maybe. I don't know. An actual real one. When it comes to Paranormal, I'm definitely going to miss it. I think whatever maze that's coming after it, it has big ass shoes to fill. Absolutely. And I think that is going to be to its detriment. I don't think it's going to be a good thing. You know, people are going to constantly be comparing it just because of the legacy that is Paranormal Inc. Now, one of my probably top memories of this season, and as we're kind of winding down on this episode, one of my favorite memories and the top memory for me was my thing that I do every single year is I close out Halloween at Scary Farm. The last night of Scary Farm, I'm there as the clock ticks to 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. depending on the night. And I was at Scary Farm this year, and one of my friends, Greg, who is the lead at Paranormal, who you guys may know as Seaweed, who is in Decayed Brigade. He also worked at Ghost Town Streets for a very long time. Yeah. Fantastic guy, love him to death. When he was working Streets, he would always find me and pretend to punch me in the nuts. So that was always fun. But I saw him, and he's like, "Hey, dude, just like 5 minutes till 2, coming over to the maze, and meet me up over here." I was like, okay, sure, why not? I don't know what he has in store, but sure, why not? That sounds cool. So I went over there about like 5 till, and he's like, "How do you feel about being the last group through this maze ever?" I was like, "Ever?"
Dang.
He's like, "Ever." I was like, "Oh my God, yes, please." So we got into line, and he was like, "Line's closed," made sure nobody got behind us. And even when we got up to the maze, he's like, he pulled me aside with like a certain group of people, specific group of people. And we were the last group through Paranormal ever. So we were getting every hit. We were getting every monster, everything. There was like double crew in there because both casts were in there, and it was just such an emotional experience. And I think one of the coolest things was that the original actor from the videos did the very last pre-show for Paranormal, which felt extremely fitting. Nice. And there was a lot of people crying, including myself. Like I was teary-eyed because it was just very emotional, because there's a lot of memories attached to that. There's a lot of emotions attached to it. Everybody has an attachment to the maze. So at the end of it, everyone's like crying, and it was such a different experience than I was expecting. So for me, like that's gonna go down in history as like one of my favorite Halloween memories like ever, really.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I envy that experience, because again, like I have a top 10 that's very fluid in terms of like all-time favorite haunt mazes. I'm pretty sure though Paranormal is always going to be my number one, because I remember the first time going through it in 2015 and just having my mind completely blown, because from a storytelling standpoint, from a intensity of the scare standpoint, from a scenic design standpoint, the fact that it had maze stunts that I had never seen before, honestly, it was perfection, absolute perfection.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad you got to send it out that way. We were able to like hang out until the closing night, the last night that we went to, and I just stood out there looking at it and being like, man, there's never going to be another maze like this. There's never going to be another first time that you walk through Paranormal Inc. or last time that you walk through Paranormal Inc. So
it's a weird feeling, isn't it?
It is.
It's a weird feeling.
It's strange. It's like saying goodbye to a friend, even though it's an inanimate object. You know what I mean? But it's the memories you make. It's the people that you've met. It's the scares that you've had. And I'm sure. I mean, God, I can't even imagine what it's like for the crews that have worked there, time and time again. And the Paranormal Inc. always makes me think of my buddy Daryl, who passed away a few years ago. He did pretty much all the video for that maze.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, man, it's special. It's special.
It definitely is special, and it's funny because I feel like you two, and obviously like a whole bunch of other haunt people, but specifically you two understand the way that I feel when I say like I was emotional that night going through that. If I were to go to, like my sister and be like, yeah, I was crying while I was leaving a maze, she just would not get it. She would not understand it or get it. And being able to talk to people who understand why I was the way I was that night makes a difference for me.
And nobody will ever be able to experience those feelings unless you've been going for as many years as we have and who have seen the maze debut, like John said, and knowing that you've gone through it year after year, and now that it's finally going away, you're just like, damn, I remember when I first walked through that 5 years ago. It's a different feeling.
It's a very, very different feeling.
Definitely, man. And if you, listener, find yourself crying about a maze, welcome to the club. You are an official
Also, don't
addict.
feel bad.
No, don't feel bad. I cry every last night of haunt. Not like sob, like
oh, it's
not
emotional,
like,
man.
you like
you
get
not
welled
like
up.
Not
you
like Disney fan mode.
No, not Disney fan mode, like rocking on the floor in the fetal position. No, you get verklempt. You get a little choked up.
It only comes a certain time of year, and you see the passion, you see the heart, you see all the blood, sweat, and tears literally that go into it. So it's definitely a whole different feeling to be at a haunt event for your last time in the season. Like I always just take a second to like sit there and listen. And
yes.
Really like.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
You're the freaking best. That's exactly what I do. And that was the one bummer thing is that I didn't get to really do that this year because, I did the paranormal part. But I mean, like, that's the part that I do too is like you just sit there and absorb because you have 300 whatever days till the next time you get to do it.
Absolutely.
So you sit there and absorb it in and just try to soak it in. And this is actually almost like the perfect ending for the show to this time around because, we started off at saying like, this year felt so intense and so different than most years. And when you get to the end of the season, and especially this year, if you're ending it at your favorite haunt of all time, and for me, that's Scary Farm. And for you guys, it seems like it's Scary Farm. It's so much more emotional. And this year, sitting in Ghost Town at 3 a.m. when everyone's gone and just seeing the fog still going, seeing the lighting and the music still going with nobody there was probably one of the most like saddest yet coolest things because that the lead up of missing an entire year and it's finally here and now it's gone. And these are literally the last fleeting moments I have with my favorite event. And I have to wait a whole nother year for it. It just felt so incredibly intense.
But that's the nice thing is that, like, at least for me, I have that moment of like the post-haunt blues where you're like, man, it's over. Like, did I do enough? Did I see enough? You know what I mean? Did I go enough?
Nikki put up a poll. Was like, hey, should I decorate for Christmas? And I said, no.
But then there's that moment too where I'm like, but you know what? It's going to come back next year. And we're going to do this all over again.
Exactly.
And that's what gets me back up where I'm like, oh, what's going to happen next year?
Yeah. And then it starts all over again. It gets all new sets of emotions and attachments to things. So, but man, this season, like we keep reiterating, has just been so intense and so much fun, so much filled with craziness. From independent haunts like 13th Door, or Reign of Terror in Thousand Oaks, which, by God, that felt like a 30-minute walkthrough. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's easily 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's insane. And then to the big show players here, like Fright Fest, Halloween Hornets, and Not Scary Farm. This year was going to go down to the books as one of the most memorable across the board. So,
and also, I just want to shout out real quick, Pirates Cave Haunt. You guys killed it.
Oh, I heard that was great.
Yeah, it was incredible. I'm a huge fan of theirs. Corona Haunt was amazing too. Yeah, and there was a lot of other home haunts that I wasn't able to make
Rotten
it out
Apple.
to, but Rotten Apple, yeah. The Gray Phantom, Ernie,
Yeah.
all of these amazing home haunts that, I mean, really saved 2020 for a lot of us, for myself, indeed. They came back this year and they hit it hard. They did a phenomenal job, and I'm so happy for all of them, and I'm happy that we have them. So shout out to you guys too, home haunters. You're kicking ass, man.
Really, that is one of the more truest statements. So I completely agree. But thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode, talking about our 2021 haunt season, almost like our haunt season roundup here. I appreciate you guys for spending some time and finally making it on the show so we can all dork out together.
It's a pleasure, man. Anytime.
Yeah, man, I had fun coming on here, and it's always nice when we all get along and talk to each other because, like you said, we all pretty much understand each other's feelings when it comes to these haunts.
Yeah. Well, I hate you, and I don't want to talk to you after this.
You're right. Your opinion sucks, Gabe.
Yeah,
I'm going to complain about you on Twitter now.
You're a terrible human.
Just be prepared for a mention later on.
At Theme Park Duo sucks.
Let the Twitter wars begin.
See if I tag you in this episode. But thank you guys once again for joining me. Make sure to plug your shows, please, and let everybody know where they can hear you guys talk about all this fun themed entertainment goodness.
Go, John.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Fight.
Oh, man. HauntLine, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at TheHauntLine. Visit us on the web, www.thehauntline.com, for links to all of our stuff. I've got podcast episodes that I'm going to start recording soon because I got the post-haunt blues real hard. And, we're going to be doing that. And also we're going to do a little Christmas YouTube content, youtube.com/TheHauntLine.
And if you guys want to check me out, youtube.com/SoCalExploring. You can find some good old theme park videos on there. Social media, Exploring Attractions, SoCalExploring. And if you want to have someone make you mad every day, and follow me on Twitter at SoCalExploring.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us on this fantastic episode. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this week's episode. This is going to be the official last Halloween episode of the season, but we have some more fun episodes lined up for you leading into the end of season 6 of the Theme Park Duo podcast, including a surprise episode from Jeff DePauli from Disney Coast to Coast, which you could actually hear one of our episodes on his feed this season as well during his little hiatus he does between seasons for him. But thank you again, everybody, for tuning into this week's episode. Make sure you follow us on social media, everybody. You can follow us at Theme Park Duo on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. We have TikTok now, and I'm posting a bunch of ridiculous videos. I posted a freaking video of Super Nintendo Land construction that has 36,000 views. Absolutely insane, which is bonkers to me that it has that many. It just blew up. I wasn't expecting it. So we have that. So make sure you guys check that out. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you check out iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review, and it helps us raise us up higher in the standings, and it helps everybody enjoy us more like you are right now. Free way to support the show, so make sure you check that out. Also, check out the show sponsor, DRNXMYTH. If you want to get like fresh made drinks at your door, click the link in the episode description for sure. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email us at themeparkduo@gmail.com. Episodes you want to hear, things you don't want to hear, why you don't want John and Scott on the show ever again, things like that. Let me know. I'm glad to hear it. And thank you for everybody enjoying our nonsense this week. And always remember, there's always a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. See ya.
Thanks for riding with the Theme Park Duo. Make sure to gather all your belongings before the end of the podcast. Bye-bye.